in America, we all value our own individual freedoms. We want to wear what we want to, do what we want to, and speak how we want to. The pursuit of our own life, liberty, and happiness is of the utmost importance. And all of these beliefs consist of one thing: the individual holds the most significance. And based on this, we can safely say that American society is based on individualism. But individualism isn't the only kind of society, though. Many Eastern countries and their cultures rely heavily on collectivism, and collectivism places a group's well-being over one single individual. Doing what is best for the culture and the group is highly revered. It even goes so far as to disregard your own individual wants and instead do what the collective has said is best. And this kind of culture would come as a shock to many Americans. So, what is the point of these two kinds of society being discussed? Well, individualism and collectivism are both core beliefs held on two opposite sides of the world, and these beliefs have altered the way their cultures and countries react to COVID-19. First, we will look at individualism and how it ties into Western countries and their culture. Secondly, we will look at collectivism and how it ties into Eastern countries and their culture. Finally, we will reflect on how each kind of society has caused their culture to handle coronavirus. As stated earlier, individualism focuses heavily on the individual and personal autonomy. According to afsusa.org, people from individualist societies see themselves as separate from others, define themselves based on their own personality traits, and see their characteristics as relatively stable and unchanging. We very often seek independence, pursuing personal goals above the goals of society. VeryWellMind.com also says that in individualistic cultures, people are considered good if they are strong, self-reliant, assertive, and independent. The collectivist priority for social agreement and cooperation may seem a bit too conformist to someone who's an individualist. People in individual societies also rather say what they mean rather than dance around the topic. Social behaviors are also altered and dictated by the preference of the individual, and this type of culture is mainly seen in North America and Western Europe. Secondly, the practice of a collective society is mainly seen in Eastern Asian countries such as China, Japan, and Korea. In these cultures, people are more likely to see themselves as connected to others, define themselves based on relationships to others, and they see their characteristics as more likely to change against different contexts. Collective societies rely heavily on depending on each other and following the certain status quo. Meeting societal expectations is very important to them. When people speak to each other, they often imply what they really mean, but sometimes they won't say what they actually mean just to avoid conflict or embarrassment. They also follow a strict and structured hierarchy of age and class. Individualistic forms of expression might even seem disruptive to a collectivist society. Finally, how do these two differentiate when it comes to handling the coronavirus? According to a study by an Italian psychologist, Alessandro Germani, called Emerging Adults in COVID-19, the role of individualism, collectivism on perceived risk and psychological maladjustment from MDPI.com, countries that have a higher pathogen risk tend to endorse more collectivist attitudes because they are warier of contact with people from outside of their own group. And also, collective-minded people perceive themselves as more vulnerable than individualistic ones because they feel a higher distinction of who is an insider and who is an outsider, and they're wary of people that may try to come in from outside of the group, which has been seen in this pandemic because a lot of those countries have closed their borders and not allowed people to come in, so that way people from the outside don't get in. And also, people with a high collectivistic orientation may feel a strong sense of responsibility towards others in their community, which has also been seen in this pandemic. In a lot of Eastern countries, even before the pandemic, people wore masks for things as trivial as the cold because they did not want others to get sick, and as a group, they worked together to protect each other. While in countries with more individualistic-minded people, it has been up to the individual's discretion on whether to wear a mask or vaccinate, because they value making their own decisions and not just following or being responsible for the group. Therefore, those with a collectivistic orientation may have an increased need to be aware and informed about the pandemic so they can protect their group rather than individualistic-minded people and countries. In conclusion, individualism and collectivism are two different types of society that have treated COVID-19 in dramatically different ways. Individualist societies value people making their own choices, and collective societies do everything for the greater good of the group. Collective societies also seem to treat viruses such as COVID-19 more seriously to ensure the health of their collective. With that being said, even in an individualistic society, you might find some collective-minded people and vice versa. Everyone falls somewhere on the individualistic collectivist scale, so where do you think you fall?